right, let's start by beginning an outline of 1 Samuel 19, 1 through 10. Anybody want to give us their outline? Let's see who's bold and brazen. Anybody? There we go.
Saul's direction to kill David.
All right, Saul's direction to kill David.
Jonathan warns David.
Jonathan warns David.
Saul heeds Jonathan's advice.
Saul heeds Jonathan's advice.
David won the war against the Philistines.
Okay, David won the war against the Philistines.
Saul tried to kill David again.
And Saul tried to kill David again. Folks, we can just go home. We know what the text is about, don't we? You know, there's nothing further to discuss. You get a good outline, you know what's going on, and that's a good outline right there. Anybody else want to give theirs? Anybody? All right, look at there. Let's. Abby's wanting to do hers. Let's do it.
Plan to kill David.
Plan to kill David. There we go again.
Jonathan defends David.
Jonathan defends David.
Saul promised not to kill David.
Okay, Saul promises not to kill David. I think that's interesting, the way she worded it. He promises not to kill him. Okay, good.
Another victory for David.
Another victory for David.
And Saul breaks his promise.
Oh, how do you like that one? I like that. Saul breaks his promise. That's not what the text says per se, but that's exactly what he does, isn't it? Breaks his promise. Good stuff, guys. I just wrote down 5 quick points. Number 1, the proposal to kill David, the preparation to save David, the plea to spare David, the plan to restore David, and lastly, the purpose to kill David. So 5 points in this particular section. All right, let's go through our questions and let's talk about this old king by the name of Saul. He was just a precious guy, wasn't he? Just precious. Has he radically changed since he first became king? Yeah. Now, guys, remember, in our reading, things happen quickly, don't they? You know, I mean, it's one verse after another, one chapter after another, and things are just changing like this. But how long did Saul reign? 40 years, okay? He reigned as king 40 years. So there is time that is passing in this particular text that sometimes we don't feel because the action in the text happens so quickly, okay? So just remember, kind of keep it in its context, that there is time that is passing during these chapters and stuff. Who did Saul ask to kill David? Yes, Jonathan and his servants. And Saul spake unto Jonathan his son, and to all his servants, that they should kill David. Has Saul personally tried to kill David already? Yes. He's taken that javelin and tried to at least, thrown it at him a couple of times, has he not? He has used his daughters, has he not, in order to try to kill David, especially which daughter? Michal. That's the one that he finally married, and Saul required a dowry of what? Yes, 100 foreskins of Philistines, hoping that David would be killed in the process. Let the hand of the Philistines be upon him, and not me. Well, was that successful? No, David comes back with 200 of those things. That just still blows my mind, okay, when I think about that. And so now he elicits the help of his own son and all of his servants, okay? I wrote this lesson down. Anger and envy often know no bounds. They do not rest until their mission has been accomplished. Is Saul on a mission? Yeah. Folks, Saul's not going to rest until what? Until David is destroyed. You know what? That's in his mind. And we made mention of the fact that if you and I ever get to the point where we obsess over an individual on a continual basis, and where we wish the demise of a person, we wish the death of a person, we wish the destruction of a person, then you and I better be very careful And we need to examine our hearts, don't we? Because we've got some severe problems going on inside, okay? This thing had nothing to do with David, did it? Had David done anything against Saul? Had he harmed Saul in any way? Had never harmed Saul, had always helped him, had always been faithful servant to him. And now here this man is doing everything he can do to destroy him. The problem is not David. The problem is Saul. And he won't admit that, okay? If you were to ask Saul, you got something wrong with you? Oh, no, I don't have anything wrong with me. I'm perfectly fine. You go out to destroy somebody, you've got a problem, okay? And we need to be very, very careful when envy and anger cause us to do that. But Jonathan, Saul's son, blank in David, delighted much in David. Wow. Jonathan was now put into a very difficult situation, was he not? He was the son of who? Saul, okay? The son of Saul. He was also a subject of Saul. Is that true? You see, he was under Saul as the king. And then the third thing, he was a soldier of Saul. Okay? So he's a son, he's a subject, and he's a soldier. Under who? Saul. Now, folks, are all those authoritative positions? Yes. All three of them are. And you would think that as the individual who is subservient in to those particular positions, that you must do what? I've got to obey, don't I? I got to obey my father. I've got to submit to the king. I've got to obey my orders from my commander. I've got to be obedient. He's put into a predicament because he delights much in who? He delights much in David. Not only did he delight much in David, but Jonathan was also a very honest man, was he not? And Jonathan knew what about David? Not that he just delighted in him. Can you delight in an evil person? Oh yeah, there's a bunch of people who delight in evil people. Okay? You know that? You wonder how. but they do. You can delight in an evil person, but David didn't delight in an evil person. He delighted in an innocent person, didn't he? Wasn't anything wrong with David? He not violated any laws. He was not an immoral individual. He wasn't an enemy of Saul. Man, the question that I asked was this: how could Jonathan be loyal to both individuals? See, that's the predicament, isn't it? You ever been in a predicament like that? You know, every now and then we get put in kind of predicaments like that, don't we? You know, maybe you've got your husband that you're married to, and all of a sudden you're in a predicament with your mother-in-law. That ain't good, is it? Okay? Because guess who's in the real predicament? Your mate. Your mate's married to you, but your mate also loves his or her mama, right? And so what do? And we all get put in positions like that, don't we? Where it almost seems like we have to choose, don't we? Okay? Now, stop real quick and think about this. Okay, now, the Bible says, Jonathan what? He delights much in David. Okay? Let's define that little word, delights much in. Okay, Strong says this. It means to be inclined to bend, to be pleased with, to desire. Brown Driver and Briggs says this: to delight in, to take pleasure in, to desire, to be pleased with. Okay? Now, how do you think Jonathan felt when he heard his father, his king, his commander, ask him to kill a man he delights in? Okay? Hey, see, we just read the text and, we sometimes we don't stop to think these are real human beings. These individuals were just like us. They had the same makeup, the same emotions, the same kind of personalities that you and I, and they're going to react just like we do. Here's a man commanded to do what? Kill his best friend. And it's not just, an empty command. This comes from a very high, powerful position in the nation, doesn't it? I wrote down another statement. It has always intrigued me how one person can be despised by one, Saul toward who? David. And that same person be loved and embraced by others. In fact, just this past week on my Facebook page, I put a whole post about this because I was so intrigued by it. How, here Vicky is, okay? And I'm just me. I am who I am, right? And yet, one person can love me, and there's another person over here who hates me. The same person, they're seeing exactly the same person, and yet he's loved by one, hated by another. And even in the same household here, Saul, the dad, hates him, and Jonathan, the son, just loves him. You see, that just intrigues me. True or false? One can be mistaken about another. It's true, isn't it? You can be mistaken about another person. Okay? I think I've told you the story when I went to Brookland, Arkansas. There was an old man there, and he just, for some reason, when I first preached and tried out and everything, he just didn't like me. Okay? And so they hired me anyway, and I had my first Sunday there, and I was standing at the back door shaking everybody out, shaking hands. He walks up to me, and he's a big guy. He stood about this tall, and he's a big old guy. He's probably about 75 to 80 years old. He shook my hand. He said, "Preacher, I want you to know right now, I didn't want you here." Dude, okay. Thank you for telling me that. Okay? Unbelievable, man. And what was so funny was, his family, he had family in the congregation, they were standing around heard it. He got a chewing that afternoon. I mean, a chewing. He came back to me then. I apologize for saying that out loud to everybody, but I want you to know I still didn't really want you here. Okay. He passed away after I had left that congregation. And guess who did his funeral? I did. Yeah. He and I became best friends. Ted Cox is his name. And love Ted. And his wife, Maxine, I did her funeral as well. And you can be mistaken about somebody, folks. You know it? You can just be dead wrong. And it's amazing to me how people will sum you up over one or two little things and hate you for it, and they don't even really know you. Okay? And they don't want to know you, do they? So that's number one. Number two, sometimes one is not able to see the truth in another person. Is that true? You're just not able to see the truth in another person. That's where Saul was. He just couldn't see what he had in David. Folks, he had a jewel. He had an asset. And yet he just could not see the good in that human being. That's sad, isn't it? You see, we can be mistaken. There can be veils over our eyes when it comes to people. And here Saul is. He hated the man, and his own son delighted much in him. Yes, ma'am.
And Jonathan is the one that you would think would be so envious of.
Oh, yeah. He really has the reason, doesn't he? Because he's going to take the kingdom not from Saul. He's going to take it from Jonathan. And absolutely, it's amazing. True or false? Jonathan warned David about his father's plans. True. And Jonathan told David, "My father seeketh to kill thee." Man. We continue, though, to see Jonathan's dilemma, don't we? He warns a friend in danger, but he also opposes the will of his father. Isn't that right? What should he have done if he's really going to please Dad? Hey, Dave, come here. Gotcha. And then he could go back and brag to Dad that I killed David. And he'd been pleasing in his father's sight. But he didn't do that. He went to his friend and he warned him, my dad wants to kill you. So he's kind of opposing Dad. At least it looks that way right now, doesn't it? That he's in opposition to his father. What did Jonathan tell David to do? Yes. And therefore I pray thee, take heed to thyself unto the morning, and abide in a secret place, and hide thyself. Man. Yeah. After he's talked to him. Yeah. Folks, here's something that's interesting. This action on the part of Jonathan lets me know that Jonathan knows his dad is serious. Isn't that true? You see? He realized when his father told him this, he understands Dad's not playing right now. Dad is as serious as a heart attack. And that's why he goes warns David. Okay? Now, there's going to be another scenario where he warns David, or David says something about his father wanting to kill him, and Jonathan's kind of, nah, I don't think so. Okay? But right now, Jonathan is serious. And he understands the significance of what he's been told to do. Okay? True or false? Jonathan was willing to intercede for David. True. And I will go out and stand beside my father in the field where thou art. And I will commune with my father of thee, and what I see, that will I tell thee. Was he in defiance of his father? Now be careful. Was he in defiance of his father? Not really. Okay? Not really. He's warned David, right? And so he's done what he needs to do for David to protect his life. But it's not like he just totally ignores Dad. What does he do? He's going to go talk to Dad, right? So you see, had he been in just bold defiance, he'd just warned David and said, David, in a few days when I think his anger's gone, I'll come tell you. And he wouldn't ever say a word to his dad. I can't find him. I don't know where he is. You know, maybe he'll pop up somewhere. That's not what he did. He said, I'm going to go talk to my dad on your behalf. So he still respects the command of his father, but what is he trying to do? He's trying to change the mind of Dad, isn't it? Okay? And guys, there's nothing wrong with, you know, if you think something's not right, you think something, you know, well, I'm going to defy the command right now, but I'm going to go do what? I'm going to go talk to the person who issued the command. And I'm going to try to reason with this individual and try to get them to what? Change their mind. And if they change their mind, then I'm not in what? I'm not in defiance of the individual's will. So, what do we call this when you go to another person on behalf of another? What's that referred to? Mediation, intercession on the part of others. Okay? Pretty interesting stuff. I wrote this lesson. Guys, friendship is not something merely claimed. It is something demonstrated. Okay? Jonathan was willing to put his life on the line and intercede on David's behalf. Okay? Now that's a friend, isn't it? Okay? You see, it's one thing when you say you're a friend. I'm your friend. But then, guys, when you really have to do something for somebody, and you really have to sacrifice on that individual's behalf, are you really a friend? You see, that's when friendship is really determined, isn't it? Okay? It's easy just to mouth the words. Oh, I'm David's friend, but I'm going to obey my daddy and I'm going to kill him. Oh, no. I'm going to put my life on the line for my friend, and I'm going to intercede on his behalf. That's friendship in action, folks. The Bible says there is a friend that sticketh closer than a what? Than a brother. And Jonathan was doing that. If there's ever an example of friendship in the Bible, Jonathan is it. Did you know that? And here's something that I want you to think about as we're going through 1 Samuel particularly, is that through this whole friendship of Jonathan, David, guess who's always the giver? Jonathan. Jonathan. Every time. Okay? Jonathan gives him his armor. Jonathan gives him his garments. Jonathan is now the one who is protecting his life. As we go through, Jonathan's going to give, and Jonathan's going to give, and guess what you never see David doing? You don't see David giving big stuff to Jonathan in return. In fact, David won't, you've got to be kidding me. Jonathan won't give anything big back to David until, no, David won't give anything big back to Jonathan until after Jonathan's dead. Isn't that something? Oh, sometimes friendships work one way. Okay? Now I'm sure there was some camaraderie and there was love that was shown between the two, but as far as big things going on between the two, Jonathan was always the one giving. It's amazing to me. Okay? And Jonathan spake blank of David unto Saul his father. He spake good of David. I put this, think of this. Jonathan spake good of David to a man who sees no good in David at all. Now think about that. Jonathan speaks to his father and to his king and to his commander about the good of Saul's enemy. Right? Doesn't he see him as an enemy? That's what the Bible says. From that point on, David was Saul's enemy. Remember that? And now David is speaking good to his father about his father's enemy. Folks, you're talking about putting your life on the line. That's some big talk. Big talk. Why did Jonathan tell his father that he should not sin against David? Yes, he gives two reasons, does he not? He has not sinned against you, and his works have been very good to you. He played the instrument for him and calmed his spirit, right? He had killed a Goliath. He'd been faithful in all his battles, going out and going in. Guys, this was a wonderful man, and yet Saul can see no good in him whatsoever. You see, that can happen to us, can't it? Our minds can be poisoned against a person who's really good. You know it? It's amazing. How did Jonathan describe David's works towards Saul? They have been to thee word very good. Not just good, they've been very good. I wrote down this. Agreeable to the senses, excellent of its kind, valuable in its estimation, appropriate, becoming, prosperous, right ethically. That's what that word very good means, folks. All of those things. Now, why would you hate a man where his works have been all good towards you? I don't know. What great salvation had David done that Jonathan reminded Saul about? The killing of Goliath. Yes, watch this. Folks, did you ever think about what that victory did? Number one, took away the reproach that had come upon Israel. Didn't it? There was a reproach there. Number two, defeated the giant. Number three, gave Israel the victory over the Philistine armies. Number four, kept Israel from becoming the servants of the Philistines. Number five, enriched Israel with spoils. Number six, made Israel respected among the other nations. One victory, six things that it did for Saul that were good. No wonder he appeals to the defeat of Goliath. How had Saul reacted initially when David slew Goliath? He rejoiced. You see, sometimes, folks, we need to be reminded of ourselves, don't we? You know, sometimes we're kind of goofy, aren't we? We act one way one time and we act another way another time. You need to be reminded of how you acted when you defeated Goliath. What did you do? Wouldn't you like to have seen Saul? He probably jumping and skipping around. Woo, boy, we beat, woo. He was tickled to death till he got into the city, right, and heard those women. How did Jonathan describe David's blood? Innocent. Innocent. If Saul had slain David, he would have done so without a cause. Guys, we better be careful. Okay? The Bible tells us don't be angry without a cause. Okay? Don't you dare do anything to another person without a cause. We don't like their looks. We don't like their personality. We don't agree with them on an issue. So what do? We hate them. We don't really have a cause. I don't like his suits. I don't like his hairdo. I don't like the way he talks. And we hate people based on those kind of things. You know that? Folks, there's no cause in that. Is that the second bell? I think that's first bell. I can't believe it. We only got 100 more questions. All right, guys, who's in a bad way right now? Saul. Does Jonathan's intercession work? For a little while. And then the evil spirit comes back on Saul, and what does he try to do? Breaks his promise and seeks to kill David again, doesn't he? Man, guys, what's that? Oh, yes, he sure did. I mean, it's bad. Yeah, he's going to stand before God with that promise that he made. Michael said he got the Lord involved in the promise, and he did, folks. He made a vow, did he not? And it's better not to make a vow than to vow it and then break it. So, very good stuff. Thank you.